ANSA is launching their first corporate natural capital report in the English-speaking Caribbean. And here with us to share more is Keisha Garcia, ESG and Natural Capital Lead from ANSA Merchant Bank, and Omar Mohammed, CEO of the Cropper Foundation, neither who are, of course, strangers to the Now Morning Show. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you both on the show again. Looking forward to this conversation because when you hear about natural capital report, many different things come to mind. But before we get into the process, let's speak about the first release of this report in the English-speaking region. Can you give us some background into this initiative and its importance?
Sure. So this journey actually started a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
3 years, yeah.
When the foundation was approached by ANSA Merchant Bank to talk about how they can integrate nature into their work, which is a very unique question to ask. And that grew into an initiative called the Caribbean Natural Capital Hub, which Keisha may talk about a little bit later. And the role of the hub is to generate good practice, show how these things could be done in the real world by including business, which is kind of often underlooked when you think about sustainability and so on. So this report is actually the first ever, putting theory into practice example within the English-speaking Caribbean, where a private sector institution and very importantly a financial institution actually took it upon themselves to sit back and understand how they as a company impact and depend on nature and the world around us. So that's sort of the simple answer. Of course, actually putting the report together is maybe a bit more technical, but it's one of the first examples of that type of, I think, really progressive thinking when it comes to what a company can report on and consider.
Excellent initiative, and of course going in line with all of us moving towards a greener economy.
Yes.
And really just, of course, we want to save the world. It's so important. Now, who is the Caribbean Natural Capital Hub for? Because you mentioned businesses. What about individuals?
Sure. So right now, I think we have maybe close to 180 members, and quite a few of them are individuals, persons who might be, like your previous guests, technical professionals who want to have a role in this transition, this green transition, including nature. But you also have quite a number of startups, sole proprietors. We have some large companies from around the region also being members. So anyone who believes that they have something to give back, or if they want to learn about, how to better integrate nature into their work, can become members. We have no sort of barriers on who can be a member.
Excellent. Keisha, tell us something. What does the process of natural capital reporting involve exactly?
Well, there are different types of natural capital reports. You have ones that are done by governments, by various institutions, and the one we're talking about today is a corporate report. And so the process is, we're learning.
Okay.
Let me say that, we're learning. So there is no standard approach, no standard methodology internationally now for it. There are several different types of methods out there that you can use. And so there is a little bit of a challenge for people now getting into the space to understand, how do I navigate through this web of reporting and methods and tools? What do I cover? What do I focus on? Now, the first step in the process is to engage, collaborate. Yes. As we have done with the Cropper Foundation, as we have done with the Capitals Coalition, which is an international network of professionals. And that helps us to bring some technical expertise on board to start the process. You then have to sit back and say, okay, as a company, why are we doing this? So you have to understand what we call the framing. What is our objective here? What are we hoping to get out of it? And once you do that, you then start a process of collecting information internally to help you understand where your money is being invested, where you're giving your loans, and then how each of those interactions with your different clients and investors has that relationship that Omar mentioned, the impacts and dependencies. So it's very convoluted. And then through that information, you collect it, you use some international tools. I can't get into the intricacies here. We'll be here for a while. And that allows you then to gain insights into the risks and opportunities that your different lines of financing pose to your company and to nature and to people.
Now, Keisha, this sounds like a lengthy process. Could you give us maybe an estimated timeline of how long something like this takes?
Well, so there are 4 stages in the internationally accepted process. And to get to the end of it, my colleagues internationally have laughed and said, I hope you have an engagement with the bank for at least 10 years, because that's what it's going to take. But we have actually been able to accelerate. We have now nearly completed our first 2 stages, which is what is reflected in this first natural capital report. Partly because, as I said, we had strong collaboration, strong technical expertise, and the bank itself has hired an in-house natural capital expert. So that does help. But we have had huge support, buy-in from the very top of the ANSA group and within our management at the bank. And I have the full support of all of the bankers and technical people within the bank. And that has allowed me to accelerate our first 2 stages and get that completed within 8 months, which I think is commendable in itself, but that requires so many different pieces to come together. As we continue to roll out now through the 3rd and 4th stage, the 3rd stage is quite a complicated one where you get into numbers. The 4th stage has to do with using the information within your bank to change the way that you do business, to improve the way you do business. That is likely to take us another few years.
Lengthy process, that is for
yes.
sure. Now, what would you say, and we can pose this to both of you, would be the key takeaways from this report?
So within our report, we have started to outline, we have started down a disclosure pathway with this report. So not just for our internal processes, but accounting now, transparency and accountability to our stakeholders, our investors, our customers, and others. And the report starts to outline that there are certain sectors which we might be financing that pose a high risk in terms of natural capital. We've seen, for example, construction come out quite high on that list, mining, energy, agriculture, and I don't think any of that is very surprising. But what it allows us to do now is to understand that where we have money invested or sort of lent in these areas, we do need to work with our stakeholders in partnership, because there are no regulations here in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean for this type of thing, in a partnership and voluntary manner to say, okay, let's see how we can begin to reduce our collective impact on nature. So it starts to give us those types of insights. It starts to lead us in understanding priorities for integrating this into a risk assessment framework and then policy and action at the banks.
Some heavy work, but with some positive outcomes as well. Omar, how can we learn more about this and get involved?
Well, a couple of ways. You can, 1, join the Caribbean Natural Capital Hub. If you go to ANSA Merchant Bank's social media and the Cropper Foundation, you will most likely find posts about the hub and membership. You can also just go on your search engine and look for the Caribbean Natural Capital Hub. I can guarantee it'll probably be the first result in that search. As well, the Caribbean Natural Capital, the Corporate Natural Capital Report is being launched this week. We're in a range of different ways. We're also putting it on social media today. So you'll be able to get some more information, download the report if you like. And of course, since it is a Natural Capital Report, we're not producing any hard copies. So we have a really good digital flip book that you can be able to go through and learn more about what Keisha said about how the process, the methodology, and some of the early findings as well.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Looking forward to seeing this continue to grow, and 10 years from now, we'll have another discussion. Have a great day. ANSA launching their first corporate natural capital report in the English-speaking Caribbean. So make sure that you follow and continue to just be in the know and join the Capital Hub. We'll be back in a few moments.
Mother Earth is crying.